So in terms of social justice and systematic inequality, this section talks about your Indigenous students, working class girls, engaging non-Indigenous people in the process of working with Indigenous students and communities, youth off the streets and maker spaces. And then Parsi tied it all together with his piece on equity in education and how one of the key takeaways from PISA, in his opinion, should be that that is the most important thing and something worth clinging to. In terms of my own experience, I'm more focused at the moment on low literacy kids and students with disabilities, especially those with non-neurotypical presentation. That's my particular interest, so I didn't necessarily connect too strongly with any of the ideas presented in these chapters, but obviously they're things that I'm well aware of. They're just not contextually relevant to the school setting that I'm in. So the section on the role of Indigenous representation in policy I felt was really important, and the way that it presented all the different policy white paper proposals that have been put forward and how they've sort of been overlooked is really significant, I think. Policy, preferably, I think all of the important groups should have a seat at the table in terms of policy, whether that be teachers generally, Indigenous teachers, and Indigenous people as a whole. As I would say with any of those groups, training and opportunity are two really important things to get that happening properly. And when you're silenced from policy, I think story is a really good way to put forward an alternative viewpoint, and that was an approach taken within this section that I really enjoyed. And but then there's also the need, or the perceived need, to kind of bring academic ideas to the role of story, which is something that I think is a bit convoluted and maybe not that necessary. They can sort of exist as two separate things, story and academic writing, and they don't necessarily need to be kind of blended to reach relevance, but that's just my opinion situation. So in terms of social justice within our system, what are we already doing? Obviously there's funding for Indigenous students and disability. What should we stop doing? I think part of the difficulty really is kind of having specialist roles for teachers. Like, I'm the specialist disability teacher, and it's my job to make all the other teachers aware of best practice. I feel obviously if we had more time for preparation, planning, collaboration, moderation, actually engaging with staff as a staff, this would be a lot easier, and you wouldn't necessarily need to flip the system in the sense that there's a hierarchy and it needs to be flipped. But you could really broaden out, as the proposal of this book is suggesting, you could broaden out the leadership structure and involve everyone in the actual process of collaboration. In terms of start doing, and it's, this book is well aware of it, student voice is lacking from this piece, but that's something that at schools we can really get involved with, and just having shared responsibility within our community and among our teachers and students as well.